Jetzt geht es inhaltlich nochmal um die Zusammenarbeit zwischen Startups und Corporates. Es geht auch um Möglichkeiten, wie das Foodsystem transformiert werden kann. Und ja, ich übergebe die Moderation jetzt an Agnes Hoffmann.
Nee, das tust du nicht, Eva. Erstmal möchte ich dir
Wirklich?
danken. Als Geschäftsführer Innovate möchte ich dir danken für die Moderation hier am Nachmittag, die wir gemeinsam, wie gesagt, hier ist Armlänge, die wir jetzt hier so verbringen konnten gemeinsam. Du hast es wieder mal legendär gemacht. Wir sind 10 Minuten hinter der Zeit. Das ist alles prima, alles total super und vielen, vielen Dank einerseits für die Unterstützung von F3 seit vielen, vielen Jahren, aber auch ganz persönlich für deine Unterstützung der Innovate. Ohne F3 wäre das alles nicht so einfach und würde auch vor allem nicht so viel Spaß machen. Also vielen Dank für die Moderation und jetzt kannst entweder du an Agnes übergeben oder ich übergebe an Agnes.
Nee, ich will.
Ja, wir haben bei Agnes nämlich auch noch ein Thema. Ich habe hier nämlich in meinem Briefing, Agnes hat heute Geburtstag.
Genau, wir können jetzt noch singen. Das habe ich auch zugesteckt bekommen von meiner von unserer super Vorbereiterin hier. Da macht sie die Kamera direkt wieder aus. Nein. Also, damit verabschiede ich mich. Singen kann ich nämlich nicht. Herzlichen Dank an alle, war mir eine Freude und viel Spaß heute Abend noch auf der Startup Award-Verleihung, glaube ich, ne? Also, alles Liebe und Agnes, ich sehe dich jetzt doch. Alles Liebe zum Geburtstag. Ich bin raus. Tschüss.
Wow, danke schön. Ich bin überwältigt. Ja, herzlich willkommen zu unserer Session on Circular Food Systems und die Art und Weise, wie wir als EIT Food das Lebensmittelwertschöpfungssystem revolutionieren wollen. Eigentlich bin heute nicht ich die Moderatorin, sondern Leif. Deswegen würde ich dich einmal bitten, kurz für uns das Mikrofon anzuschalten und die ganze Session offiziell zu starten, bis ich dann nochmal dran bin.
Yeah, hi everyone, and happy birthday, Agnes, again. So this session is going to be in English. That's the reason why I'm speaking English. We're going to have awesome speakers here. One of them is English speaking, so that's the reason why we're going to have an English session here. On behalf of EIT Food, I'd like to welcome you to the session, which is called Circular Food Systems and Corporate Startup Collaboration. How can we transform the food system together? So my name is Leif Brändle. I'm a doctoral student at the Entrepreneurship Research Group at the University of Hohenheim, facilitator at the Startup Garage and a founding team member of Social Entrepreneurship Baden-Württemberg. And I'm the host of this wonderful session tonight. So in order to get started with the session, I provide you with a brief overview of what we're gonna do. This session, as I already introduced, is slightly different to the other sessions here at the Innovate for two reasons. So first of all, it's in English. And second, it's an interactive session. Woo! So this means that we're going to have an open discussion, which will be the biggest part of our session. And in order to make the interactive part, so the open discussion work, I'd encourage you to join our Zoom meeting by either pressing the button below the live stream or join via the link that is being shared in the chat. If you need assistance, please write us in the chat. I think the Innovate team will help you there. Agnes is also looking at the chat and is maybe going to provide some help or assistance there. So when it comes to supporting innovative startups to make the food system more sustainable, I couldn't think of another organization that is more invested in this cause. Hence, and as we don't have too much time, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Agnes, whose birthday it is today. Agnes is a business creation manager at EIT Food and will give us an understanding about the various startup programs that EIT Food hosts. So I'm really curious to learn about the different startup programs. And Agnes, the stage is yours. Very special day for you today. So yeah, please kick it off.
Thanks so much, Leif. I just have to start sharing the screen. 1 second.
And by the way, and in the meantime, if you have any questions for Agnes or also the other participant speakers, please just write into the chat. And we prefer you to write in the Zoom chat. So this is also where we draw like the questions for our open discussion from. So please write any questions or comments to the speaker.
Can you see the presentation now? Not yet, right? Okay,
Not yet,
that's
Agnes.
interesting. So let's start here.
You might switch to the presentation mode if that's possible, because we see your notes there.
Yeah, I can see that. Of course, that's always how it is. So, can you see it now?
Perfect, Agnes. Perfect.
Okay.
Stage is yours.
Perfect. So thanks again. Everyone knows it's my birthday. Thanks very much for your wishes. And I'd like to welcome you on behalf of EIT Food and ACT in EIT Food here at the Innovate conference. We've heard some really interesting speakers, some really interesting talks about sustainability, about alternative proteins, and also, of course, about the topic of circular food systems and the cooperation of startups and corporates and how we can transform the food system together. So I'm Agnes, and I work as a business creation manager. For those of you who don't know EIT Food yet, EIT Food is started by the European Institute of Technology, and it has the aim of really making our food system more sustainable, healthy, and trusted. So yeah, that's quite a big claim. The question is, how do we do that? We have a clear vision. Our vision is a world where everybody can access and enjoy sustainable, safe, and healthy food with trust and fairness from farm to fork. And we really want to reach that with our mission. And we want to transform the way food is produced and valued by European society, solving the biggest innovation challenges through our industry, education, and research partners. So one point that's really important to us is to work with informed and engaged citizens. So we really want to include the consumer and our and everything that we do. This is our partner network, so you can see partners along. Oh, thanks. The whole food value chain. And there you can see DSM. We'll also hear about Carolina later. The Fraunhofer Institute, DIL that you also met earlier in the presentation, the Technical University of Munich, Bühler, and so on. So what is EIT Food? I already talked to you about that in a bit. Our headquarters is in Leuven, so you can see we're all over Europe. And the EIT Food CLC Central, that's where I work. We're located in Freising in Germany, obviously, and we work in different areas. So work in business creation, innovation, education, and communication. My role as a business creation manager on a federal level is to really support food tech and ag tech entrepreneurs, startups, and especially SMEs here in Germany. We want to connect startups, SMEs, and our corporate partners. So I do work in a project that is funded by the German Ministry of Education and Research, and it's called ACT in EIT Food. So we really wanted to know what are the pressing challenges here in Germany and explore the economic and innovative potential of topics such as circular bioeconomy, sustainable agriculture, and we really want to understand the pressing challenges that small and medium-sized companies, but also that farmers have, for example, during the current COVID-19 pandemic, but also when it comes to the topic of food waste and the whole food industry. So before I tell you about our projects, here's a quick overview about our business creation flagship programs, because I think there's quite a lot of startups here that might want to know more about it. So we have basically 3 programs. The Seedbed Incubator program, if you're a startup, an entrepreneur who didn't start their startup yet, but maybe wants to become a startup founder. We have this pre-accelerator program that's located here at DIL in Quakenbrück. I think you already got to know them a little bit. Here you receive mentorship from agri-food experts and up to 10K of funding and a potential follow-up funding of 20K as a startup launch grant. And the second program that we have is the Food Accelerator Network. It's also located here in Munich. And Munich Hub, here you get matchmaking. It's all about tailor-made support by leading industry partners and about pilot projects. Here you also reach access to financial support and of course also investors exposure. And the third program that we had is more like a network. It's the Rising Food Stars Network. Here it's all about international exposure and really upscaling your tech startup. And here you gain somewhat as a partner. Let's say you basically become part of our partner network. You get the possibility to get EIT funding, and you can collaborate with our trusted network partners. So maybe for you some examples so you can see who's already in the network. You might know Eatly, who produce fermented dough, or the startup Spoontainable, that's also here today, and we'll hear a bit more about it later from Julia. Or also as a rising food star, Pilas or Grain Sense or Pro Lupin, to name a few German examples. So if you want to get to know a bit more about our ecosystem, about our whole network on the startup side, on the business creation side, I strongly advise you to come join us at the Venture Summit. This is our virtual conference on the 17th and 18th of November, where you can get to know the whole EIT Food Investors Network, but also get to know all the alumni from our 3 programs, from the different fields of alternative proteins, circular food, but also targeted nutrition and sustainable agriculture and sustainable aquaculture. This is really if you want to deep dive more into the whole business creation programs. And also if you want to connect more with founders on a German level, there's the Gründerinnen-Stammtisch, Food Tech and AgTech that we'll have on the 25th of November. So if you want to join us there, be our guest. We'll post the link in the chat so you can get to know, you can just get more information about that. So for now, let's act in EIT Food. Get in touch if you want to learn more about our programs, network with us. Please feel welcome to write me an email if you want to know more about the programs, share your ideas. And for now, I'll leave the stage to you. Carolina and Julia and Leif. I'm super excited to hear about your experiences in working together in the food tech industry, about your ideas of a circular food system and how we can transform the future of food together. And I'm really looking forward to it. So back to you, Leif. Have fun.
Thanks, Agnes. Wonderful. So I can only encourage the work of EIT Food here, for example, at the University of Hohenheim. Many food startups are being helped and supported by EIT Food. So I saw minimum 2 startups from our university at the list. So yeah, great work EIT Food is doing there. And hopefully we're going to learn more later. And as you've maybe already seen, you can always write questions in the chat. I think Agnes is more than ready to answer them and more than willing. All right. So as Agnes already mentioned, we have distinguished speakers here showing the perspectives of corporates and startups. So we're going to proceed there in a minute, and afterwards we're going to have the open panel discussion with all of you. And just as a reminder for those who just joined our session, if you want to join the interactive panel session, please join our Zoom meeting by clicking on the button below the live stream or the link in the chat, because then you can interact with us in the Zoom meeting, which would be awesome. So back to our main topic, the circular food system and corporate startup collaborations. At first sight, collaborations between corporates and startups are promising. So in the combination of cutting edge technologies, disruptive business models, and entrepreneurial ways of tackling problems, startups offer intriguing complementary assets for established companies. Corporates, however, provide access to relevant resources and partners and often hold knowledge about downstream market assets such as marketing and sales. However, there are challenges in corporate startup collaborations. In the innovation research literature, for example, scholars speak about the shark's dilemma. That is, for startups swimming with sharks, they need to balance the tension between gaining attractive resources and a potential misappropriation, for example, through failing to defend their intellectual properties. In some, however, in the research, it shows that collaborations between corporates and startups drive important innovations. And this might be also true for the food system and the circularity of the food system. So hence, what do we need in order to bring corporates and startups together for a circular food system? Are these corporations all the more important to ally with startups to innovate a food system towards circularity? So as I said, I'm glad that we have two distinguished speakers representing different sides of the corporate startup equation here. And as a corporate representative, we will have Carolina Villa from DSM in the Netherlands joining us. DSM is a corporate partner of EIT Food and a partner of EIT Fan in Munich in particular. And Carolina serves as campus development manager at the biotech campus in Delft and will share her experience in working with startups from a corporate perspective. So Carolina, we're thrilled to have you here as speaker, and we're excited to hear from you the corporate perspective on corporate startup collaborations. So the stage is yours, Carolina.
Yeah, thank you. Very happy to be here. I thought for a start, I would just very shortly introduce DSM and what DSM is doing in circular food, because not a lot of people know. But I'm going to keep it short because, as you said, this is about the interaction. So I'm really looking forward more to the questions. So I'm just going to kick off with a short presentation that I hope will trigger you. Can you see it?
Looks good. Maybe also switch into, yeah, perfect.
Good.
Here you go.
So not a lot of people know about DSM. So DSM is a big company. So we have sales around 10 billion a year. But it's also a company that it's active in multiple fields. So it's not only about food or human nutrition. That part, as you can see in this graph, is only a little bit over 30% of what DSM does, because it's also very much active in animal nutrition and also in materials, and there are different emerging platforms. So it's a big company with presence around the globe. We have around 23,000 employees, but it's also a company that's very committed to sustainability. It's also a company that understands that we cannot be successful or call ourselves successful in a society that fails. And I think we here can recognize that we are going through a crisis. So in terms of nutrition, for example, we have a lot of obese people, but we also have a lot of people that are undernourished. But also climate is a bit of an issue. So we're at the risk of having around 140 million people migrating because of the climate crisis. But also in terms of resources, we're using more than we can. And if we keep up at that space by 2050, we're going to use 4 times the Earth's capacity. So this is something really not sustainable. And this is something that DSM as a company saw already a while ago. So in 2018, DSM launched their new strategy, which is called purpose-led, performance-driven. So it's really about identifying those key megatrends, putting that up together with the Sustainable Development Goals and seeing what are the company's strengths, where are we good? And therefore the company identified 3 focus points. So one is nutrition and health, the other one climate and energy, and the third one resources and circularity. And the whole strategy is about focusing on these 3 topics for growth. So it's really about putting purpose at the center while also generating performance, right? So these are the 3 topics. Each one of them kind of relates to a couple of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I just wanted very briefly to emphasize what the focus are, especially for the nutrition and health and the resources and circularity part, because that's really about circular food, right? So just when it comes to nutrition and health, DSM is focusing a lot about macro and micronutrients, because a lot of the nutrition problems really lack on micronutrients. It's not about being absolutely skinny or absolutely obese, but not just having the right elements in your body. And it's also very much about reducing salt, reducing sugar, saturated fats, but also combating antimicrobial resistance and providing solutions for longevity. So very short and in a nutshell, if you have questions, I'm more than happy to elaborate with a few examples, but I don't want to extend it too much just for the intro. And when it comes to resources and circularity, it's all about efficiency, yields, avoiding food waste, but also about preserving biodiversity. So both land and marine biodiversity, and focusing on real circular economy. So first, reduce, replace, extend, enable, and recover. So that is a little bit in a nutshell what DSM is doing. Again, I really want to give room to the discussion, so therefore didn't want to expand too much on the rest, but very happy to address any kind of questions.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Carolina. Virtual applause, and thanks for these first insights. And as you said, we're going to have the possibility to discuss it in our open discussion. So next, as startup representative, we're going to have Julia Piechotta from Spoontainable on stage. Spoontainable is a super successful female food tech startup that also participates in this year's EIT fan cohort. And by the way, the two female founders graduated at my home university, the University of Hohenheim. So this is why I already know them. And yeah, I think it's a great journey you've been through, and I'm more than happy to have you here and to listen to your talk now, Julia. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Leif, for your words. I just try to share my screen. Hopefully you can see it right now. Does it work?
It works.
Perfect. So awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Leif, for the great introduction. So I'm Julia, one of the founders of Spoontainable. As Leif already said, Amelie and I graduated just a few months ago at the University of Hohenheim. And yeah, as you can see here, our first product is an edible spoon, yeah, I would like to introduce you to our startup in a few slides. It's really quick, and I hope yeah, to give you a really good example of what we are doing right now. So yeah, we focused on the plastic pollution in the last few years, and yeah, we saw that plastic pollution is quite a huge problem. There are millions tons of plastic waste in all over the world, and yeah, we try to make a difference to that. And so we started on focusing on some special plastic problems, and we started with single-use plastic. And here we focus on cutlery. And so, okay, we have that huge cutlery business. It's like you use it for 4 minutes or even less, and then you throw your cutlery away. And what alternatives do we have right now? So there's of course wooden spoons, and there's maybe biodegradable plastic, which isn't that bio as it sounds. And we thought, okay, that's not really sustainable. What can we do by that to make a real true sustainable alternative? And yeah, we went into our student's kitchen, and we started our first prototypes by just baking a simple spoon, which didn't work out. And soon we focused on a totally different problem, and this was the chocolate industry. And here we found out that you have that great cocoa fruit, and inside that fruit you have the beans of the cocoa. And these beans are not totally used for the chocolate production. So we have the shells, which you can see in the middle of the picture right now, which aren't used for the chocolate industry because they are too rough. And these shells can be made into fibers, and these are full of dietary fibers, full of great cocoa taste and natural taste. And we made, out of these residuals, we made our edible spoon, so a plastic alternative. And this is why we make a total sustainable circular economy with our product right now. And of course, there are not only these shells of the cocoa bean which aren't used in the food industry. There's still more. There's also like oat husk, for example, which isn't used in a cool way. So with the oat husk, we made our oh, sorry, you could just see our spoonie chuck in a big way. Yeah, to the oat husk again. So we made our second spoon, the oat, the Spoonie Classic, which you can see right here. And this is kind of a more classical way. So the Spoonie Classic is made out of that oat fibers. And right now we have that two different spoons. We already sold more than 2 million of them. So we could replace all that plastic spoons right now. Both spoons are edible, sustainable, and vegan. And one of them is also gluten-free. So I hope everyone can eat one of them. Right now, we are also working on more products, like, for example, this bigger spoon. It will change in the next few months. So yeah, if you focus on Spoontainable, you will see many more cool products coming in the next few weeks. And yeah, so our aim is to provide a real sustainable circular approach in order to use food waste, industrial food waste, for example, and yeah, to provide our customers a real sustainable alternative. But using sustainable resources is, of course, not the only way to be sustainable. We also try to compensate all our CO2 emissions with our partner, Climate Partner, and try to be sustainable on all our levels. And yeah, I just provided a nice slogan or a nice definition of sustainability here. So as you might already notice, so sustainability is not only a slogan for us, it's our brand name, it's our company name. Spoon and sustainable leads to Spoontainable, and this is why we try to make a real long-term focus on the environment and, of course, on our business model. And yeah, by being sustainable, we also got awarded. So we try to make all our processes on the supply chain sustainable. As I already said, the resources are really sustainable. Our production is also sustainable because we do really good scaling right now and compensate our CO2 emissions. We are using big packaging, so we reduce our packages so that you do not have many packaging waste. And also our marketing material is really sustainable because we are using recycled paper and environment friendly paper. So as you can see, we try to implement it in all our supply chain, and this is why we also got rewarded the Green Brand Award this year. But coming back to the part of EIT Fan, we are right now at the EIT Fan, and it's really cool and awesome to be here with you guys and talk about that. And yeah, so I just want to move on to the cooperation part. I think today might be the best day to talk about that because we were working on a quite huge project in the last few months. We tried to integrate our spoons in our product, which is already on the retail. And yeah, maybe I can give you some quick insights to working with these corporates. So we will launch our next project at Aldi Nord and Aldi Süd tomorrow. They just posted us on social media, so it was like the last minutes were like really rough because we tried to post our stuff too and had a lot of comments and emails just coming in. And yeah, and in the last few months we learned a lot. We learned how to work with such a great and a huge corporation because as you might know, working with the corporate is totally different. As with a startup, you have that long that long timelines by reaching out to the right person. So it takes the time. The decision-making process is really, really long, and also the supply chain is really long. So right now, Amelie and I can decide quite every step we make, but if we want to make Aldi to change a step, it takes like weeks because somebody needs to decide it. And yeah, also in terms of negotiation, maybe it's really important that you believe in your vision and that you do not change it just because making a contract or something like that. So try to be strong when working with corporates. And for us, it's a real great opportunity to increase our brand awareness and to show the people who Spoontainable and of course our sustainable alternatives are. And these are quite some short insights, and I'm really happy to hear the next questions. I think there might be a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julia. Virtual applause for your talk. And actually, I wrote a case study about Spoontainable, as you know, and I always find it hard to catch up with the news you are providing. Like, you're making so fast progress, and it's very hard for me to, you know, to make progress on my case study on Spoontainable, because yeah, there are always news about your company. So thank you very much also for the insights into the corporate startup relations. We're gonna dig into this topic right now together with the audience. I've seen that there are some more people in the live stream compared to the Zoom session. So I'd encourage again those folks in the live stream to join us here in Zoom. Please just click the button below the live stream in order to join us here in the Zoom meeting. The reason for it is that we want to have an interactive part now in which you can ask your questions. You can join our panel here, raise your voice, ask your questions. You can also put the questions into the chat, and you can also post the questions in German, as Agnes already mentioned here in the chat. That's absolutely right. So please also ask your questions in German. We're gonna translate it and put it here to the panel. All right, but before we're starting, I think it might be a good idea to just get a little bit an overview of who is here in Zoom in the participants. And the way I would like to do it is there's a function here in Zoom in which you can either raise your hand or make the green check in order to answer a question yes or no. So I'd like to know all the participants whether you are working in a startup. If you're working in a startup, please either raise your hand or click this green check. You can now see it at the participants tab after my name, if you see it. So if you're working in a startup, please click the green check. So Julia, I think in your case, you would be working in a startup. You can click the tab, the participants tab, and then you can click the green check if you're working in a startup. Otherwise, we would also love to see you on the video. So for those of you who are really brave, please unlock your camera and show us a hand maybe if you're working in a startup. So I think, you're not working in a startup, Dominic. All right, I can see you there. So, there you go. So I'd ask the question again, who of you is working in a startup? Please either raise your hand in the camera or write it in the chat in order for us to get a sense of who is here in the audience. Who is working for a corporate? Maybe raise your hand. All right. Who is a student, maybe? All right, Dominic is a student. Mira, what are you doing? Just raise your voice, please. You can unmute yourself.
Hi there, I'm Mira. I'm also working for EAT Food, and I'm actually sharing an office with Agnes if we're not in the home office. So that's why I'm here.
All right, great. Welcome, Mira. Okay, so we got a little bit of a sense who is here, but actually I hope that we can, stress it a little bit more during the session and learn a little bit more about our participants here in the Zoom meeting. But in order to start, so I'd like you to write some questions into the chat, which we then can ask here in the panel. But until we have some questions in the chat, I'd start with asking some questions. So Julia and Carolina, from your point of view, do you remember successful cooperations you had with either startups or corporates? And what were the specific characteristics of these cooperations you remember, which made it successful? So do you remember successful cooperations? And if so, could you outline what were the characteristics of these successful corporations. Whoever wants to start, please kick it off.
I can start if it's fine. So yeah, we had, like I just said, the great cooperation with Aldi, but we had some more. And I think the most important thing I remember of a great cooperation is to talk with the people on one level. So it doesn't matter if it's like the CEO or some huge manager, right? So you are the manager of a startup too. So try to yeah, talk in one line. And I think that's what makes a cooperation great, and also transparency. I think you need to know what you want, but you also need to trust your yeah, the other person, and these are maybe the main important factors of a good cooperation.
Yeah, I think I can only echo that. I mean, trust will be by far for me the main element in good collaborations. But indeed, what you said, it's always good to know what each part is looking in that collaboration. So get clarity on what you maybe as a startup want to get out, and also who you need to talk to. I mean, I'm totally in line with you there, Julia, because I've often had the case that, you know, like companies come to talk to us and they don't do the proper research. A corporation is a huge organization with multiple layers, multiple business units. And it can be that maybe once you talk to somebody and that was not your right entry point, it doesn't mean that the company is not your right entry point. You just didn't talk to the right person, So map out your stakeholders correctly and understand who would be the right decision maker based on what you want to achieve for that collaboration as well.
I think that's a very important point, Carolina, and I'd like to follow up on that. So, Julia, how would you start a cooperation? How would you identify this person in a corporate to talk to? Are there any advices?
Yeah, really difficult. So the most important contacts we got on some exhibitions or via other contacts, and we always try to ask the people, so who's responsible for that? Who can we talk to? But I think another great opportunity is LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the most easiest way to get in contact with people. They can see who you are. It's like a bit more personal than in an email, because you have a picture and you see, okay, who is he or she connected to. So yeah, these two types of researching and also trying to talk to people is for us the best way from right now to start a cooperation.
All right, thanks, Julia. And there we have a question, a first question here in the chat. And I'm especially thrilled, you know, to read out this question. I'd prefer also Christoph to read it out himself, but I'd do it for him. So how to approach best a big company from a startup perspective is Christoph's question. And I think you answered it in some parts, Julia, but maybe like Christoph is also targeting or wanting to know like in which ways would you do it? Like how would you prepare maybe for it? Like what information would you share when approaching a corporate? I mean, we were talking about the person to identify in the corporate, but how to approach, like the process of approaching. If you might elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to know what you want from that cooperation. So is it more a cooperation in terms of the supply chain, in terms of the distribution or marketing, or starting a totally new product? So try to identify what you want and what you want your partner to do. So what are your expectations? And I think if you know that, and if you can present that to the cooperation partner, they will see, okay, the startup knows what it wants, and they see that they're motivated. And yeah, I think that's maybe from the first of beginning. And then after reaching out to the person, maybe try to make just a short call where you get to know each other, where you ask some basic questions of, okay, is that and that possible, and how are you doing things like that, and then try to make up some follow calls. I think going yeah, straight to the business stuff is always a bad idea. So try to yeah, make the trust base really good, and yeah, I hope these insights were a bit better. I don't know if this question is finally answered.
Yeah, maybe I can add something.
Yeah,
so
please.
Totally on that page, but also state your value properly. You know, like one thing is to know what you want, but also let your counterpart know how you can add value to their organization. And that has to be short, crispy, and to the point. Don't rant about all the things you can do. Rant about the one thing that's adding value for them. Because that's the hook, that's what's going to get their attention. Corporates are approached by tons of different small companies. If you're not quick and to the point, you won't get a seat on the table.
Maybe to get a short feedback of you, Carolina, to the point Julia was making about the social part of exchange. How important is it for you to build trust, like between the startup and the corporate in the collaboration? And how do you do it, Carolina?
I think I mentioned it at the beginning. Trust is of utmost important, I think, and how to do it, that's difficult. I mean, you create that in the interaction. One way that we've tried to do that is, like you said at the beginning, so in Delft, we have this ecosystem that was started by DSM, but it's a little bit beyond DSM, where we also have startups. And that trust is built because everyone is in the same physical location. So they just meet at the coffee and start a conversation. So before our collaboration even starts, you already know a little bit from one another, and that goes very, very smoothly. But that's just one of the multiple ways, I would say.
All right. Thanks, Carolina. And there is another question of Dominic, which builds a little bit on our discussion. We were already talking about values and missions. So Dominic is asking whether you had problems with like entering collaborations with corporates due to your mission as a startup, and you might have thought, okay, maybe this is not in line with our mission to collaborate with this specific corporate. Did you have instances of these thoughts, and how did you manage it, Julia?
Yeah, so yeah, we had the luck that we just thought of that case. So we were in the position that we had to decide, okay, is that our philosophy or not? But for sure, it was like, it's really important that you know what you want to. So and what your philosophy is. So if we had that case and that problem, we definitely would stick to our philosophy and to what for Spoontainable stands for, because I think this is the main part what our business stands for: transparency and to be sustainable in an authentic way. So yeah, I don't know, for example, if we are collaborating with a plastic producer, this might be the best idea, but if we help him to solve a problem in terms of not using plastic anymore, that's maybe a good idea. So we always have to elaborate if it's like, what's the impact in the end, right? So, and how to communicate it. I think that's the most important way, because sometimes people just see what they want to see, and you always need to ask yourself if it's that the way, if you want to work.
All right, thanks, Julia. And there is another question in the chat from George. Maybe if I don't understand your question correctly, you can just join us here on the panel. But it is, what kind of know-how were you missing most during founding state and now, if still? So I think it leads a little bit into what you need from corporates and what corporates maybe need from startups, but maybe more likely from a startup perspective. So what did you need from corporates, also in terms of know-how?
Experience, maybe, but that is just a thing you can learn by yourself. So I'm not sure if it's just a thing we need it from corporates. I think it's more the relationship you need to work on by yourself. I think it's nothing corporates can give you. So of course it's awesome when a corporate comes to you and say, hey, let's do this together, and here's a real fair contract, and you don't have to negotiate with us, but that won't happen. So in terms of cooperating, I think it's the experience you need to make by yourself, and you will make mistakes. We did that also, but you have to learn, and you have to learn fast. And for us, it was great to have like mentors from accelerator programs for the IT fan, for example, and we also did the Tech Founders Accelerator. So try to talk to the people, and yeah, try to research a lot, and to speak with other startups, maybe what other problems they had when negotiating with the corporate.
Absolutely. So could you, Carolina, could you name one learning from cooperations with a startup in which you'd say, this is something we should have done better? And maybe also with regard to whether startups would need support in these collaborations during the process. So one learning in which you'd say something went wrong, which you would like to share here.
I think it's always important to align on expectations from the very beginning in all kinds of levels. And I think Julia also mentioned it. Corporates are slow. Decision making is slow. And startups maybe have the expectations. I mean, they want to move fast. They're flexible. They can pivot really quickly, and that's one of their advantages. But when they work together, that's one of the clashes. So I think it's important from the very beginning just to align on expectations, especially on that end. That will be one important learning, I would say.
All right, and to follow up on that, Julia, could you imagine of any support which could prepare you for this kind of cultural clash between startups and corporates? Like, is there any support, maybe also from organizations like EIT, which would be helpful in order to prepare?
Yes, sure. So we joined a lot of mentorship programs, accelerator programs, and also on exhibitions, we talked to a lot of people. I'm not sure if there's a special program, but I think you need, as a startup, you need to found your program. And for us, the accelerator programs were really great. There are also workshops where you learn how to negotiate, or you learn how to make the terms with a corporate and stuff like that. Yeah, so but if you don't can join an accelerator, try to go on workshops or other startup hubs where you can talk to the people who already did it. I think there are a lot of co-working spaces where you can exchange your experiences, and where other founders maybe explain to you what their challenges were.
All right, thanks. So maybe one final question and thoughts of both of you, Carolina and Julia. So with regard to circular food systems, why are collaborations between startups and corporates especially needed and important for circular food systems, or for circularity as such, if you, for example, imagine the whole supply chain which needs to be like innovated?
Maybe I'll start with that, because it's a rather complex problem. And I think to tackle complex problems, you need collaboration, and you need to use each other's strengths. Like I said, corporates have skills, reputations, they're robust, they're trustable, but they're slow. And for such complex challenges, you need more agility, you need to be able to pivot fast. You need to have a lot of energy and drive, and people that can actually manage to keep that regardless of the challenges. And that's something that maybe corporations don't always have. So yeah, absolutely necessary to use each other's strengths.
Yeah, I can totally agree with Carolina. I think especially for startups who want to scale up and make a big impact, it's really important to have a cooperation in order to grow fast and make that impact, especially in the food sector and in the circular food sector. And like Carolina said, we have that huge problems, and we can only face them when we are working together and try to change it.
All right, great. So we would definitely vote here for cooperations between startups and corporates in order to innovate the food system towards circularity. Maybe this sums it up a little bit. I think what it also sums up is we need to align our expectations between startups and corporates. You need to find the right person and the right department to talk to in order to find the right answers. And there is a bunch of trust you need to invest in and you need to build in order to make cooperation, which is like culturally different between startups and corporates, work. So with that, I'd like to thank you for this amazing discussion and also your inputs, Julia and Carolina, and also Agnes. And actually, that's the end of the Innovate food track. So now following is a super exciting startup pitches, which represent a highlight of this Innovate conference. These pitches will take part in food, agriculture, digital, and 2 startups each will compete for the awards. So please hang on and just click on the Innovate Awards at the talk menu. Agnes, do you want to say some final goodbye or some words or anything? Because otherwise all that remains for me to say is thank you, stay safe, and let's innovate the food system.
All good. Thanks for joining all. Have a great evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.